Welcome to Healing and Made Free with Janet Boynes Ministries. Thank you for listening. Janet will be talking about her struggle with addiction, alcohol, drugs, eating disorders, unwanted same-sex attraction, and living a homosexual life. Janet has survived all those things by the grace of God. Janet's not a doctor, she's not a therapist, she's not a psychotherapist, she's not a licensed counselor. Janet is an ordained pastor and wants to show you God's promises, how God has set her free, and how you can be set free. What He has done for her, He will do it for you. If healing and freedom are what you want, you have come to the right place at the right time. Let's get started. Here is Janet Boynes.
Hey everybody, welcome to Healing and Made Free with Janet Boynes. I am with my friend Nic Natarella. We are going to do a part two. Last podcast, we talked about his daughter having a, marriage and, finding out that she was gay. Now we're going to talk about his father. He found out many, many years ago that his father was gay. Nic, I'm just going to jump right into it. I don't know how old you were when you heard that your father was gay. First of all, how old were you?
I was 20. I was in college.
Yeah. Wow. Was that a shock to you and to your brother, or do you have siblings?
Yeah, I do have one brother. In fact, it was uh, my parents had gotten divorced, and it was a couple of years later that my father finally came out. There were, how would I say it? There were like less than guesses, quite frankly. It was like, why did mom and dad get divorced? Well, either maybe they just didn't love each other anymore, maybe they grew apart, maybe dad was gay, maybe this, maybe this. It was just one in the list that carried no more weight than any of the others.
Mm-hmm.
There was no indication or anything like that, but it was on the list.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember it was Christmas, and my brother and I think my brother was still at home. Yeah, if I was 20, then he was 14. So yeah, he was still in high school, living at home with my mother. My father was about 150 miles away. And on Christmas Day, he came to pick us up and we went back to his place. His roommate, which he had always told us, that he ran into this guy who was also getting a divorce and they just decided to get an apartment together. That was what he told us about his roommate. He all of a sudden had to go to the grocery store. And my father sat us down and he was like, guys, there is something I need to tell you. The reason why your mother and I divorced is because I'm gay. And he was in tears. This is something that he had been struggling with for a very long time. In fact, just recently, he told me he knew that he was gay since he was 5 years old. And this was something that he had been pushing down and squashing ever since. Where was I going with this? Christmas. Oh, so at the time when I was in college, I was a theater major. I had just finished up being an acting major at NYU, and I switched to the University of Illinois, where I became a stage manager. So at least half my friends were gay. And it was something that I saw every day, encountered people, interacted with people. They were friends. We'd go out, stuff like that. We'd do stuff together. It's no big deal. So obviously, accepting my friends, I had to accept my father. But, this just kind of felt very, very different. This is my dad. But rejecting my dad would be rejecting my friends as well. So it was this double-edged sword that I wasn't sure where to go with it or how to navigate it or something like that. And then the enemy starts messing with you.
Were you
Even though at the
saved
time-
then?
No, I was just going to say I wasn't even saved then.
Right.
But the enemy's going to take what he possibly can and start to do whatever he can to take as many people with him instead of having them go with God.
Right.
But so then all of a sudden, when these dominoes start to fall in your mind, it's like, well, why am I even here?
Mm-hmm.
If my dad had just come out and never married my mother, I wouldn't even be on this planet. Why am I even here? Am I like accidentally taking up space because my dad lied for all these years? So literally doubting my own existence. that was kind of a hard pill to swallow.
Mhm.
It was very difficult, and I never brought it up to a therapist. I never talked about that or anything like that. Um, because again, at the time I was in the theater department, it was just, I'm not going to say natural, but I dealt with it every day. It was not an issue.
Right.
It was there. So,
Right.
it just took on another face. It was the face of my
Mhm.
dad, you know?
Did the love for your dad or the love that he showed you, did that change? Did the relationship change?
I think it did a little bit. Again, at the time I was in college, I mean, I was doing 6 a.m. to midnight, being a theater major, classes during the day and rehearsals until midnight and stuff like that. Setting up and tearing down and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there were some late nights in the theater and late nights in the rehearsal rooms and stuff like that. So being able to even call home was a rare occasion. Just totally swamped with classes and homework and rehearsals. And you were always in rehearsal for something, always.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and being a stage management major, you started before anybody else did, except for the director. The director was the only person who got started before you, um, analyzing the script and stuff like that. But as soon as you were assigned to a show, you hit the ground running, and
Mhm.
then they cast it, and then the actors come along. But it was very busy time, quite a blur. I was doing
Mhm.
summer theater around the country, anything from Texas to Ball State to all over the place doing summer theater gigs and not even getting home. Maybe having 2 or 3 days between finals and starting a job. I mean,
Mhm.
it was just nonstop, and that's what you needed to do to build up
Right.
your resume.
Right.
So things kind of we didn't talk as much. In fact, when I was in Texas, he actually came and visited, so that was pretty cool. Um,
Mhm.
he saw the theater and saw what I was doing and saw a show and that kind of stuff.
Did
Trying
he
to
come
think
alone or did he come with his partner?
with his partner. Yep, they were there.
Was that
Um,
embarrassing for you or people really didn't know because they weren't affectionate or anything like that?
yeah, they were not affectionate. In fact, I'm trying to put it in the sequence of events. I think Texas may have been before he came out to us.
Mhm.
So, as far as we were concerned, as far as I was concerned, or we, my brother and I, were concerned that they were just on vacation together.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
how naive could I be? Whatever.
Yeah. Well, there are guys that take trips together, but there's something different, I think, about men that are living a homosexual life and women. It's just there's just something in their demeanor, and not all mannerisms dictate that somebody's gay. Because I have some friends that their mannerisms are feminine, but they're so far away from being gay. They're married, they got kids, they're very happy. So we can't judge a book by its cover. But then there's times when the Holy Spirit can quicken your spirit and give you that indication something's wrong, something's different.
Right.
And that's what the Holy Spirit is there for. I'm talking with Nic Natarella. We're talking about at the age of 20 and his brother at the age of 14 finding out that his father was gay. And it didn't seem like it had an impact. I was talking with a parent just recently, Nick, and she has to drive her son like 300 miles to visit his gay dad. That was part of the divorce settlement. I don't know why anybody would want to do that. Sometimes you're afraid because they have a lot more money than you, et cetera, et cetera. She's afraid that if she leaves her son there, that, he would try to indoctrinate their son, or his son will pick up all these different mannerisms or think you can have a homosexual relationship or you can have a heterosexual, you get to choose. Did that thought ever come to your mind or your brother's mind, to your knowledge?
Not to my brother's mind, to his, not to my knowledge, and not mine. I'm just way too attracted to women. So
Hallelujah.
yeah, so there it was. I was like, could it be? No, definitely not. Nope, nope, nope.
That's not your wheelhouse.
No, no.
Well, that's good to know. Did it have any impact? How did it impact your mom, even though she's not here today, went home to be with the Lord? And how did it
No, she's
impact
alive. She's alive.
your mom's alive? I didn't know
Yeah.
that. My
Yeah.
apologies. Nick's mom is alive. How did that impact her then? And does it still impact her today?
Y- I'm just going to say yes. Um, Again, let's get back to my doubts about my own existence.
Hmm.
If my dad had been forthcoming from the very beginning, I would have never been born. Um, it's been very devastating to my mother. Um, Doubting her own femininity and being a woman and womanhood, and I mean, I can't even imagine some of the stuff that's gone through her mind. But yeah, it was very rough, very rough.
Yeah. It's I'm not surprised because when I talk with women who find out that their husband is looking at pornography, their self-esteem just decreases and they think this person is better than them and what have you done wrong and could I have been a better, wife or but it's not their fault. You can't control what somebody else does. Those of you that are watching that might have a husband who or a wife for that matter leave the marriage to go into a homosexual lifestyle is not your fault. Homosexuality is not the problem. It's the manifestations that are going on inside of you. They're dealing with some trauma or deeply rooted things that propelled them to go into that life. Is there hope for them? Absolutely. Just like there was hope for me. There's hope for Nick's daughter that we talked about, in his first podcast. But we can't give up. Nick, you had some devastating news, and I hope you're open to talk about this. Your father's boyfriend is going through something. And I commend you. You went to be by your father's side, not to support his relationship, but your father needed his son. Can we talk about that for a little bit?
Sure. About 4 years ago, they were on a cruise, and at the time, my dad's partner suffered a massive heart attack and stroke. And since then, I mean, he lost all use of the left side of his body and has slowly been deteriorating. And just a couple weeks ago, he passed away. And it was over the Christmas, New Year's break. And I'm about 3.5 hours from him. Pretty simple drive to make. Just down, turn left, that kind of thing. It's really easy to get there. And so I spent the Christmas couple of days around Christmas, before and during Christmas, and then I came home and I was with my family for a day or two, and then I went back down there. I called my father. Um, what was it? I guess the Thursday before. It was the day before New Year's Day, and I said, "Hey, Dad, today's basically a half day for all of my clients. They're not going to be around. I was going to call him and say, look, as soon as I'm done with this half day, I'm going to jump in the car and I'll be right back down." Well, I called him at 9 o'clock in the morning, and my father answered, and I could tell he was crying. I was like, "Hey, what's going on?" And he said, "I think he just passed." And I was like, "Okay." I said, "Well, I was calling to tell you that in a few hours I'm going to jump in the car and be back down there." So that still stands. I'm hoping to be on the road by 12, be
Hmm.
down there by 3:30, 4 o'clock at the latest, and I'll see you today. He's like,
Hmm.
"Okay." He's like, "Please, we knew this was coming. We've known this is coming for 4 years. Don't rush. Take your time. Don't get in a car accident." I said, "All right, no problem." That's what I did. As soon as my day was done, I quickly packed up, a couple of things and some toiletries and jumped in the car and drove back down there. Um, Watched a
That's
lot of football.
humanity. That's you loving your dad and not supporting his relationship, but knowing that your dad was, with this person for a long time and
37
you
years.
wanted to go and love on your dad and just let him know I love you. I'm sorry this happened. Your dad knows where you stand on this issue. It wasn't something that your young daughters, that you'll allow them to just go down there and visit them in that homosexual relationship. That's not something you wanted to instill in them. Um, but if parents are watching and something like this happened to one of your parents, it's okay to love on them during that time. That's still your parent until they go home to be at the Lord. But we talked about this, and you actually, had your father's, boyfriend say the salvation prayer, or you asked him if he knew Jesus. What happened during that time?
It was during the first trip during Christmas, because obviously I didn't make it for the New Year's trip. I was a few hours late. But at one point, my dad was asleep, and it was funny. I don't know if we should go there or not. Um, my dad was looking for somebody to bless him and say the last rites. That should tell you where I'm going with this. And I said, "Well, Dad, I can do that." I said, "I don't need an intermediary. I can do this."
Right, right.
He's like, "Okay, all right, fine, I got you, but I think he would prefer a priest." I said, "Okay, all right, that's fine." Well, at one point, Dad had fallen asleep there watching TV, and I just leaned over and I said, "Hey, listen, I know, I know you can hear me, and I know." I said, "This is Nicky." My father went by Nick. I go by Nicky when I'm around them. That's the
Mhm.
way it is. And I said, "I don't know where you stand with God." I said, "But we're going to make sure." I said, "I know you can't speak, but I know you can think it and I know you can feel it in your heart." I said, "Just repeat after me in your heart and in your mind if you want to spend eternity with Jesus." And I
Mm.
walked him through the prayer. And
Wow.
when it was over, he took 3 big, deep breaths. And I thought, "Oh, Lord, please let me read into that. Let me read into that. What did that just imply? Please let me come to that conclusion." And I just hoped and prayed that he said it and he prayed it and he meant it.
Yeah.
But that was
When you
that was pretty
go ahead,
awesome.
Nick.
That was pretty
When you
awesome
go
to be
back
able to do that.
to Jesus dying on the cross, both men had opportunity. One, you know, took advantage of the opportunity, and the other one was just stupid. you know, and I believe, it's a possibility, and you'll know one day, and I believe that is true, that he said that prayer in his heart and in his mind. You know
I
what I
hope so.
mean? And God received him, and hopefully you'll have the opportunity to lead your father to the Lord. And those of you that are listening to Nic Natarella, you heard about his daughter, you heard about his father who just lost somebody that he was with for 30 some odd years. Nick, I'm going to give you the last word, and then I want you to talk about your business. Before we go, I have a few minutes here. What is your um, heart telling you to speak to the people out there that might have a family, a father or mother that's living a life of homosexuality?
It is probably one of the most confusing situations you're going to be in. There's that delicate balance between approval and condoning and uh, not loving them and not coming across as condoning. And we have the perfect example, in Jesus. Everybody that he met, I mean, face it, everybody that he met was a sinner. He was the only one on the planet at that time that was sinless. Everybody else had a sin, and he still loved them. He still loved them. He did not encourage their sin. He didn't, the woman at the well, she had 5 boyfriends, she had 5 husbands. He didn't set her up with number 6. He told her, "Stop doing that." He told the woman caught in adultery, "Don't do that." And notice, I love the way he said it before. Even before that, he says, "So, where are the ones condemning you?" And she's like, "Everybody left." He asked, "Who is without sin? Throw the first stone." He could have cast the first stone. He's the only person who could have cast that first stone. but nobody else did. They all dropped their rock and walked away. So what was their sin? It didn't matter. They all had a sin that disqualified them. So I ask you, how are you just going to love on them? The Bible also says to honor your mother and your father. That's one of the first 10, one of the top 10. Honor your mother and father so it will go well with you. The first commandment that has a promise attached to it. And honoring your parents. I mean, did I agree with what was going on? No. But this was the person that my dad had spent 37 years of his life with. If you just can't put that into context, how can you, I mean, and have at least a little empathy for that? I mean, it's pretty obvious that he was devastated. And I know his partner well. It was wonderful being with him. He was a great guy. My heart broke too. My heart hurt too. I know his daughter. My heart was breaking for her too. And in the blink of an eye, my dad's life changed. And you know what that's like when a loved one passes away. You've been with them for decades. And it's that love that you want to show. Just be Jesus with feet on. Serve, love.
Nic, that was beautiful. Empathy. It's okay to show empathy. It's okay to show that you hurt for your father and for everything that he's going through. Nic, thank you for being so transparent and so sensitive to your dad. Honor your parents, regardless of the sin that they're living. We still have an opportunity to show empathy and show that the love of God is living right through you. Those of you that are listening, you heard Nic's story about his father living a homosexual life for 30 some years, just lost his partner. And that could happen to somebody in your family. You'll think they'll never come to know Jesus. But I believe Nic's father's partner gave his life to Jesus right there on his deathbed. So there's hope for your parent. There's hope for your parents out there if they're living life of homosexuality. Nic, before we sign off, tell our listeners about your business. You do it a lot for Janet Boynes Ministry with our podcast. Please share that. We'll have it on the screen when this airs on the not only on the podcast but also on YouTube. Nic?
You're darn right we're going to have it on the screen because I'm going to put it there.
That's right. Go for it.
No, what I do, and I have a lot of fun with this, getting a business established with either a YouTube channel, a podcast, and blogging. And when you do those three things together and you do them correctly, it becomes a very steady stream of clients and potential clients. And it's like internet magic kind of stuff. But I have a lot of fun with it, and it really can. It'll boost your business like crazy, and I love doing it.
Nic Natarella, thank you for being on Healing and Made Free with Janet Boynes Ministries. Take this YouTube or this podcast and pass it on to a friend. God bless you, Nic. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to Healing and Made Free with Janet Boynes. Acts 10:34 says, God is no respecter of persons. God doesn't play favorites, which means what he has done for Janet, what he has done for guests on this show, he will do for you too. If you are struggling with anything, do not hesitate to reach out to Janet Boynes Ministries. They will do their best to help you any way they can. Go to the website, janetboynesministries.com. Janet loves you, and most importantly, God loves you. Have a blessed day.